This is a terrifying film to me, and what was even more surprising is as I was watching this film and I was gearing up for this YouTube video, I looked it up online. This is not even defined as a horror film. Welcome to Copper Shock, where we are horror obsessed. My name is Tasha Wheelhouse. Today, we are going to talk about Nightcrawler from 2014. This film really affects me. It hits me somewhere personally weird because it feels like tragically something that I believe mankind is still capable of doing. Louis Bloom is not somebody I personally find to be that sympathetic of a character that I want to cheer on and see him succeed. Because every time he has succeeded, he does it at the expense of someone else in his story. We're going to talk about that today. It's the kind of horror film that isn't supernatural in any way. The main character himself is not some psychotic serial killer, but it is what I would define as a monster movie, a monster of humanity kind of film, where the main character is somebody that lives among us. I think that there are genuine things this film warned us about as a society 10 years ago that are still relevant today. Let me take you back to 2014. Okay, let's take a little road trip back 10 years. That was the year that Taylor Swift released her first pop album of 1989. This was also the year that we lost Robin Williams. I would maybe sometimes tune in for the news just to understand what the traffic jam was going to be like in the morning. So when I watched Nightcrawler for the first time, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe someone could make a career out of filming events like that because nothing like that existed in Utah. Or if it did, no one was stringing for it overnight to sell it to KSL. This competitive practice of filming someone in this hour of pain and then selling it on for entertainment, it felt inhuman to do so. And yet, it is very common today for people to comfortably get out their phones to film strangers. But first, let's talk about the contents of this movie, especially if you haven't seen it before. Nightcrawler follows the tale of a man named Louis Bloom. Louis Bloom, or Lou Bloom, is the most talentless man you have ever met. He steals. He doesn't really have a lot of good interpersonal social skills, despite how hard he tries. You sort of feel bad for him because he's just trying to get by while living in LA. And yet, there are very few redeeming qualities about this man. This character has like weird outbursts of laughter while watching the court jester. Like, don't get me wrong, I liked the court jester when I was 6, but laughing that hard at that one scene, or when he breaks the mirror out of frustration, you see this huge bandwidth of emotion that he does not regulate. And yet most of the time you see him somewhere in the middle, but you know he's forcing himself, he's masking his emotions to be in that middle because that's what people socially expect of him. Which means as you're watching him trying to act normal, there's this undercurrent of anger that you can't quite place. Oh, he's scary. Jake Gyllenhaal does an amazing job of just feeling like this really icky person. I don't know how else to explain this, but like I've had such a girl crush on Jake Gyllenhaal since he was in October Sky. However, in this movie, there's one evening where he's feeling particularly dejected and he drives by a car crash on the highway, a big fiery instance where he pulls over simply to walk over and get a good look. And he's not the only one who stops. There's also a different van with big cameras that come out to film the whole thing around him. And he asks the cameraman, like, hey, are you guys hiring? Like, I want to do this stuff. And the guy basically tells him to buzz off. Stringing, he decides, is an option, and he wants to explore what that business model even looks like for somebody. One of the best shots that he ever got was the shootout in a neighborhood where he got there late, so to speak. Like everybody else got all the footage they wanted and things were wrapping up. And he takes the initiative to break into the home where the shootout happened to get footage of the bullet holes in the refrigerator and move the family pictures on the refrigerator to get the shot. And more than the shot of the fridge, he gets a shot panning out the window of the family talking to the cops. I mean, it's so cinematic. He gets rewarded for this behavior of sneaking into someone's home who has just experienced a horrible event to get the shot. And this clicks for him. And he gets this high of his contributed work being publicly displayed for the world to be seen, because this is a man who is invisible to everyone in his life up through this point. And as he begins to understand that when he takes the initiative beyond the social norms that everyone else will not cross, that's when it gets dangerous. There's a particular scene that I remember actually putting my hand over my mouth with my eyes wide in horror looking up at the screen. Louis Bloom gets a lucky break. He hears about a car crash and gets there before ambulances, before any of the other stringers. He's trying to find the angle. It's a little dark on this road. And then he gets an idea. He grabs the feet of the crash victim in the street and he pulls him into the headlights of the car. And he gets his camera and he goes up on the hill to get the shot. And I can't tell you how much that just hit me in the gut. He wanted to move the person, the thing that could actively paralyze someone for life, to get the shot for a couple $100 that night. And what's even worse about the scene in particular is the swell of music that's happening behind it isn't horrific. In fact, it's this really soothing synth city music that I would even compare to like Instagram inspirational reels. You know the kind I'm talking about, the kind that's like, you gotta get up in the morning, you gotta take the chances, you gotta go do the thing and go get the thing that no one else is willing to do that day. And then the music goes, wah, wah. You know what I'm talking about? I swear everyone knows what I'm talking about. But that's the kind of music that is playing in this scene when he has dragged the victim into a frame that gets him the shot he needs. Louis Bloom sees opportunity in places that everyone else is not willing to do. Louis Bloom not only starts to build his career, he gets a nicer car, he hires on an employee to have a secondary camera so he can have cross shots of stuff. Something that Louis does in the course of this film that really describes how little he values human relationship. The very first scene that he encounters any stringer is Bill Paxton, the actor Bill Paxton. And Bill Paxton becomes his biggest competitor over time because Louis has such success that he's able to compete with him to a point where even Bill Paxton like makes a suggestion of, hey man, let's partner up and let's get all this cool stuff figured out together and build our businesses. Louis Bloom just tells him to buzz off. In fact, I think what he said was,
I feel like grabbing you by your ears right now and screaming in your face, I'm not interested.
But the way that he says it is so flat and deadpan that it's you actually cannot tell what the emotions are that Louis Bloom is feeling and how much rage is simmering just underneath the surface. And Louis grows such resentment against this character that Bill Paxton plays, this secondary competitive stringer, that he cuts the brake lines for him. And he's hanging around that night waiting for this guy to crash. And it happens. He gets to the crash site because he wants to be there in time to see them wheel Bill Paxton into the back of an ambulance. And there's a particular shot where Jake Gyllenhaal is standing over with his camera and he raises it up. And you've got this shot of the camera lens that pans down to Jake Gyllenhaal's face of that lording power over Bill Paxton. And it's scary. Game over, man. Game over. Different reference, completely different film, but still Bill Paxton. The other defining part about this exact scene, Louis Bloom has a hired employee, his secondary camera, where as they're walking up to this crash site that has Bill Paxton in it, he's like, whoa, man, don't film that. That guy's one of us. And Louis Bloom turns back to him and says,
Not anymore, Rick. We're professionals. He's a sale.
What? And this isn't the only relationship in which Louis Bloom really burns the relationships around him in order for him to strong-arm people to do what he wants. Because again, this is a man who's been powerless his whole life, and yet he has found a foothold in this world that rewards him for his obtuse behaviors. There's Nina, who's this newscaster. Well, she used to be on TV, and I guess that she now runs this podunk, tiny California news station that's like the last dog at the food bowl kind of situation. And Louis Bloom strong arms her into a relationship, and it is gross. I can't even tell you how much ick I get from watching this scene even 10 years later.
You can't have dinners like this or be physical with a person, outside of flirtationship.
Where are you going with this?
And that next month's ratings directly affect that.
So you're threatening that if I don't...
I'm negotiating.
You're threatening to stop selling to me.
That's your choice.
It's not like she's exactly guiltless either. Let me be clear about that. Nina as a character is the enabler for for Louis Bloom. She's the one who looks at all of his questionable filmed material and says, let's use that. All of this is toxic. This is not good for anybody. The big break comes when Louis Bloom hears on a police radio scanner that there's been a reported event or a shootout in this really rich neighborhood. He gets there before the shooters have left, because what Lou Bloom decides to do is he takes footage of the shooters and their car before they hightail it out. And then he goes into the house where the bodies are. These people who haven't been dead maybe more than 2 minutes. This one scene in particular where he notices a nursery started covering my eyes because I didn't know if I wanted to see what they were going to show me, and a baby crib off in the corner. And he starts slowly walking to it and raises his camera into the crib. I didn't know if I was even going to stay in the theater at that point. I was actually super worried that the film, which I knew was rated R, and hadn't had much violence in the film up until this point of him walking around the house filming these bodies, I didn't see enough violence to justify the R rating that this film was yet. And I was very, very worried that they were going to show me a deceased child or mutilated in some way on screen. Even for entertainment purposes, that crosses a personal line for me. And I felt uncomfortable. I felt myself break out into a sweat. Everything this character has shown me up through this point in this film tells me he'd have no problem looking at that. He gets all the footage put together. He runs back to his car, back to his filming buddy. They put all this footage together and immediately go to the newscasting station that he likes to partner with. They're starting to review his footage in live time of each of the bodies and stuff that he'd filmed. And then you eventually see him get to the nursery room. And I felt my stomach clench because I'm like, ah. And then Louis Bloom says, there's nothing in the crib. And I'm so grateful that character said something. He said it so matter-of-factly, but I think he did it as a reassurance, because even the characters that are in this video booth were having the same reaction I was of, I don't want to see what's in there. It becomes this elongated breaking news story that he gets to participate in because he knows who the shooters are. The police even suspect Louis Bloom knows who the shooters are. Louis finds the shooters by using the footage that he has of the license plate of the car. And he's able to locate who these men are and follow them, tail them into a perfect situation for him to film. His cameraman recognizes the depravity of the fact this guy has not called the police to report known information about a violent person. And there's a particular quote that Lou tells his camera partner.
What if my problem wasn't that I don't understand people, but that I don't like them? What if I was obliged to hurt you for something like this?
Excuse me? What? What? He calls 911 to incite policemen to come meet and find these shooters where they are in this little restaurant so that he can get the shot of the shootout and the chase of the cars. He even gets his partner shot in the process, but he does it on purpose. He puts his cameraman in harm's way specifically to be killed. And after this whole thing happens and he gets all of the shots he wanted of this massive breaking story, he gets everything he sought out to have at the beginning of this journey. He wants to be seen. He wants to be known. His name is everywhere in the newscast station. Everyone knows him. They say hello to him. He's like the guy at the office kind of vibe. And he even hires on additional people for his newscasting service to capture this footage. As I watched Nightcrawler again this year for entertainment purposes, to examine this story, look at this character growth, why am I still drawn to such a despicable character? And then it hit me where the intent behind hitting record had very weighted meaning. When you hit record on your phone, on your camera, and in Louis Bloom's case, on his camcorder, what is the intent of the footage that you are capturing? Is it because your baby did something adorable and you want to send it on to your folks to say, hey, look what baby Tommy did today? Or did you record it so that you could post it online to get likes from people you don't know? Stay with me. What's the purpose of filming a stranger who's having a meltdown at McDonald's? Public shaming? Examples of what not to do? Personal attention for your account because you've captured something unique? Genuine question. This is something I wish people would ask themselves more. In Louis Bloom's case, he was very objective about what he was taking his footage of and what it was meant to do. When we take footage today of strangers, what is it for? Some time ago, there was that scandal with Logan Paul, where he was walking through a particular forest in Japan that is known for people to unalive themselves, and he found a body, and he filmed it, and he put it on YouTube, laughing at what it was he'd found because he couldn't believe he'd actually found an actual body. But he wasn't thinking about the fact that that was someone's son. That man's family doesn't maybe not even know that he's gone yet. Now, that was in 2018. It's now 2025, and I'm really sad to report this is still a problem today. Epic Universe opened recently this year, and there was a tragedy that happened in the park where someone who was riding the roller coaster in the middle of the park ended up pulling into the station, passed away.
The people in the line were justified in being upset. Some said they wanted to call 911, others said they wanted to call family, but why? Why would you really need your phone? They had to put their phone into a locker before getting to this point in the queue, but honestly, I can almost guarantee there were people in the queue who were disappointed by the fact they would not have their phones to record the tragedy in front of them.
We have to be conscious, especially recording people we don't personally know. How is it that it doesn't take someone like Louis Bloom to do this to each other anymore? This film makes me feel a lot of things because of that. This is why I love horror films like this. They examine the human condition in a higher saturated, not comedic, but like in a more heightened way. If you are hitting record because you see an opportunity, question what the opportunity is. The empowering part to all of this, you are the one who gets to answer that question. Why do you hit record? And you get to choose what it means.